First Citizens Probe: The Heavy Price of PNM's Mismanagement, an editorial by Curtis Anthony O'Brady, journalist and political scientist. The announcement by Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar that the government is probing First Citizens Holdings Limited has sent shockwaves across the country. It is a serious matter whenever one of our most trusted financial institutions falls under investigation. But let us be honest, what we are seeing today is not a surprise. It is the direct consequence of years of weak governance, partisan appointments, and financial mismanagement under the People's National Movement, PNM. For too long, the PNM treated state enterprises as political spoils, stuffing boards with friends, loyalists, and financiers rather than competent professionals. First Citizens, the flagship state-owned bank, was no exception. The probe we face today is the inevitable result of this reckless culture, a legacy of political interference. The PNM's track record with state enterprises is a graveyard of failure. From Petrotran's multi-billion-dollar collapse to the mismanagement of UDCOT, the story is always the same: poor oversight, political interference, and no accountability. At First Citizens, the signs were there. During the PNM's tenure, foreign exchange shortages worsened dramatically, leaving businesses struggling to access U.S. dollars. Central bank reports between 2015 and 2020 show net foreign reserves fell from $11.5 billion to $6.9 billion. Yet during this same period, allegations grew that politically connected individuals were hoarding foreign currency through inside access at the banks. Ordinary citizens queued for hours with no relief, while the well-connected thrived. The PNM not only failed to address this imbalance, but benefited from it. Instead of strengthening oversight, they tightened their grip on board appointments at First Citizens. Ministers ensured their allies held key positions, with little regard for whether those individuals had the training or independence to safeguard the bank. Oversight failure by design. One of the greatest failures of the PNM years was in oversight. While the central bank has always had the authority to vet directors under the fit and proper rules, that power was deliberately undermined by political interference. Board members were selected by the Ministry of Finance and rubber-stamped, even when questions were raised about conflicts of interest. This process left the door wide open for abuse. By 2019, auditors flagged concerns about weak internal controls in several financial institutions. Yet nothing was done to strengthen safeguards at First Citizens. The truth is that this was not an accident. It was design. The PNM wanted control, not accountability. They wanted loyalty, not competence. The human cost of mismanagement. We must never forget that the victims of this kind of mismanagement are not board members or politicians, but ordinary citizens. Between 2016 and 2020, the World Bank recorded that Trinidad and Tobago experienced one of the steepest declines in ease of doing business in the region, largely due to restricted access to foreign exchange and inefficient state institutions. Small and medium-sized enterprises bore the brunt, with many shutting down because they simply could not access funds to pay suppliers abroad. Meanwhile, ordinary depositors were treated unfairly. Those with connections could move large sums freely, while others were blocked or delayed. This is why the Prime Minister is right to say that those who benefited from the PNM's skewed system will now be the loudest to complain about scrutiny. They know the racket has ended. How to prevent this from happening again? The question before us now is not only how to repair the damage, but how to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago never again finds itself in this position. Several measures are urgent and unavoidable. 1. Independent Appointments Committee. Remove the Ministry of Finance's direct hand from appointing boards. A nonpartisan committee of professionals should select directors based on merit and expertise. 2. Asset declarations and conflict checks. Every board member must disclose their assets and business ties to prevent conflicts of interest. 3. Mandatory transparency reports. First Citizens should publish quarterly reports on foreign exchange allocations and major financial decisions. 4. Whistleblower protection. Employees must be free to report wrongdoing without fear of victimization. 5. Stronger central bank powers. Regulators must be given authority to conduct real-time audits of state banks and remove directors who fail governance standards. 6. Performance contracts for executives. Managers must be hired on performance-based contracts tied to customer service, compliance, and transparency, not political favor. The UNC difference. There is an important distinction between then and now. Under the PNM, the culture was secrecy, denial, and cover-up. Problems were swept under the rug until they became scandals too big to hide. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, the approach has been different. She has acknowledged the issues publicly, initiated investigations, and moved to replace weak boards with professionals of integrity. This is the leadership the country needs, not the arrogance of denial, but the humility to confront problems openly and fix them. The fact that the Prime Minister herself addressed the First Citizens Matter shows the UNC government's commitment to transparency. Conclusion: a turning point. The probe into First Citizens must not be treated as just another headline in a long list of state enterprise scandals. It must be the turning point that finally breaks the cycle of political interference and mismanagement that the PNM left behind. For years, the PNM ran this country as though the people's assets were their private inheritance. They undermined institutions, protected insiders, and left ordinary citizens to suffer the consequences. First Citizens is only the latest casualty of this toxic legacy. But with strong reforms, transparent governance, and independent oversight, we can save this bank and restore public confidence. The people of Trinidad and Tobago deserve financial institutions that work for them, not for politicians and their friends. Let this be the moment when we say, never again. Never again should the PNM, or any government, be allowed to use state enterprises as a feeding trough for the few at the expense of the many.